Emily Cooper?
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
I got a feeling I'm in trouble when I look at you.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Guy Simone et je regarde Emily à Paris. I'm not French. I don't know how to speak French. But as someone who took 2 years of high school French and went to Paris twice, I have some thoughts on this film and I think they deserve to be heard. Let's get into this video. Emily in Paris is, according to Netflix, a show about a girl from the Midwest who gets hired at a French marketing firm to give an American perspective. This is not what this show is about. I went into this movie knowing nothing beyond that the girl's name is Emily, she was white according to like the little thumbnail on Netflix, and that she was going to Paris. Was she going to Paris, Texas? I've been to Paris, Texas. Look, here's me in Paris, Texas. Lovely, right? Look, there's a little Eiffel Tower. Could have been anywhere she was going. But alas, she was actually going to Paris, France. I had been avoiding watching this show for so long, but since it kept popping up on my Netflix minute page, I'm sure even for you, it's like popping up all over for you, and you're just like, can you please stop? This is not what I want. This is not like, I'm not the, like, maybe I'm the demographic, but so I do not want to see this. It's literally just every freaking where. But I was bored. I had nothing else to watch, so I was like, all right, let's give it a shot. It's 10 episodes. First episode, we meet or introduced to Emily, a lovely, attractive white girl played by of the Mortal Instruments fame. I know she's in other stuff. I just don't know what they are, and that's where I know her from, because I read books a lot, and I read most of the things I watched were remakes of books, so that's how I know Lily Collins. She plays Emily. She is a hard-working girl at a pharmaceutical marketing company, or is she in marketing at a pharmaceutical company? Anyway, somehow her boss gets pregnant at the age, I think like in her late 40s, early 50s, played by the woman from Private Practice and Grey's Anatomy, who's literally there for 2 episodes, probably a total of like 5 minutes. I'm like, how'd they get you in this film just to like be like, sorry, you're pregnant, you can't move and continue on with your career. So sorry, too bad, goodbye. And moved to Paris to get this great job where she's helping a marketing company get an American Perspective preview for a year. But since she got pregnant, decided not to take that and move there and raise her kid. And she could have easily just moved there and had her kid. She was newly pregnant. I don't see why she couldn't just move there, have her kid, raise it for a little bit there, and move back. She was single. She could have easily done this. But then we would have no Emily would not get to go to Paris, which would be a god darn shame. A god darn shame. So Emily somehow gets the opportunity to do this because I don't know. I guess she was there. She was available. It just fell into her lap. She didn't have to ask for it. Just was there. I'm not bitter. I'm not bitter at all that, you know, I worked all day today. I'm doing this now. But I'm sorry guys. You don't hear me like rant and bitch about my life. Gets this opportunity, go to Paris, decides to take it. She has this boyfriend whose name I do not know. We do not know how long they've been together. They could have been together a day, a week, a month, years, high school sweethearts. We never know. It is irrelevant to the story, but her main actual love interest is her who is her neighbor who lives on the floor beneath her, who is a chef at a restaurant. He's cute. They get along well. There's some funny, cute like scenes of them like bonding. And then their storyline is basically, just to recap that whole thing, you can go of course see it for yourself if you want to. You do not have to, but if you want to, is that they have all this chemistry, keeps doing her favors, they bond, there's chemistry there. I'm like, okay, I guess he's it. Like, shoot, let's get it, girl. Like, go for it. Then she makes out with him at a restaurant, and then when she's leaving, this girl walks up and she's like, oh, hey, She's like, bonjour, Emily. And then she's like, oh, why are you here? She's like, oh, I'm here to visit my boyfriend who's a chef. And she's like, no way. And this girl who comes up, she's been like Emily's friend. Her name is Camille. Her and Camille become friends. Like, they run into each other in the neighborhood. Camille helped her get some flowers. Cool, great. And they like started talking, being friends. It really shocks me how much people don't bring up that they're in relationships with people. It's something that only ever happens in shows. Like, anyone I'm friends with, or like I know, even like coworkers, casual people in my lives, I know their relationship status because people just bring that shit up. Like, they just do. So the fact that Camille was never like, oh yeah, I have a boyfriend, he's a chef in this area, never came up. The fact that whatever his name is, chef, was never like, oh yeah, I have a girlfriend, we've been together for a while, met her family, never comes up. Emily is literally showered in the chef guy's apartment because her shower was broken, never freaking came up. Somehow never saw this girl at his place, and she's been living there for a while, never saw them. And then suddenly, after she knew they were together, wow, look, they're everywhere. How did this happen? I know some say like it's a blind list, like, you know, once you buy a white Volkswagen, you start always seeing white Volkswagens. Once you're wearing a top, you start seeing the top everywhere. So I guess maybe it's that kind of thing. But I don't think it applies to like living with like in the same building as someone. They stopped trying to get their chemistry. Their chemistry is like abundant throughout this whole entire series. And I'm just like, it's like a will they, won't they, but like, why should they? And there's like tons of guys in Paris who don't have to go with the only person who's like in your apartment building, who's obviously taking Emily. Get out there. I'm gonna recap some other things on close on her work. Emily has this boss. Her whole office is like, why the heck are you here? We don't need a American perspective at all, which I think they do, because being in this office and like seeing it, they obviously need someone, but it kind of shocks me that how kind of incompetent this firm is with their social media marketing in the year 2020, that no one is proficient at the use of social media marketing. And really the American perspective is just social media. Emily says this one line about like, I know that the French are proficient in social media marketing, but Americans invented it. It's like, okay, sure, America invented it, but like that was just like literally unfathomable. Like no one knew how to like use social media integration, social cross pollination, all the fancy marketing terms you learn in like college in a marketing class. Crazy and wild to me that this woman had to be the person who tells you this. So her and her boss don't get along. No one in the office gets along to her because like, why is this la plouc, which just means hick in the office? But slowly they warm up to her because they realize, oh, she's good at her job, she's capable. And she just kind of like, she has like maybe 1.5 episodes of them like being like iffy about her, and then suddenly they warm up to her. Even her boss, who is a grade A, not a grade A, she's like a grade B minus, like, bitch, and warms up to her. There's this other male, I wish I knew people's names, but when you're binging something, it's rough. So it turns out their boss is having an affair with the head of one of their clients, who is a perfumer, who has a perfume company. And she's just like, oh, that's like interesting. That's just something people like outwardly do, have affairs with married people. And our coworkers are like, yes, it's the way of the French. Sometimes we have like, sometimes the Frischstrasse and then the wife actually responds. I'm sorry for this really bad French accent. I just can't help it. I really can't help it. Really can't. And that does not work out too great for her boss, because the male guy perfumer is also interested in Emily, which is, I don't want to say it's weird because like a 20-year age difference, but like, do you boo? But still, like, you have a wife, you have a mistress, you need like another side piece. That just seems like, a lot. He sends her like La Perla lingerie, and just like, And if you don't know, it's like really expensive really, really, really expensive lingerie, like the creme de la creme. Doesn't work out for her too well. The boss and the perfume guy are supposed to be going to St. Bart. Somehow his wife finds out about it and thinks the trip's for her. It is not for her, but for the mistress. And then now her boss is all sad and like dejected, like, I'm sorry. That's that storyline. Other storylines are that Emily has a best friend a girl she meets randomly at a park who is a nanny. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry, you feel so like small and like dejected and like that sucks for you, like let's be friends. She's like, are you American? She's like, oh no, I'm actually from China, but it's cool. This girl is not Chinese. Her last name is Park. She is Korean. I know that's the only thing that bothers me is when I see people, I know they need roles and I know everyone needs roles, so I'm not gonna like nitpick. I know sometimes black people, African people, some African people, like, I'm not gonna nitpick. I'm just like, she can just be from Korea. She's Korean. She's obviously Korean. Anyway, she comes up to her. She's like, let's be friends. That never happens to me. I'm never just sitting at a nice park and someone's like, oh, you seem so sad and dejected. Like, let's be best friends. I see you in this random place alone. It does not happen to me. I'm bitter this whole entire movie. I watched it so much. I'm like, movie. I was bitter this whole entire time. Emily also has like this really fire dress outfit collection. I'm like, how can you afford this? Here's her with a fancy ass Chanel bag. Here's her with a really nice Chanel coat. Like, she just has so many clothing items. I'm like, how can you afford any of this? Please tell me. There's no way. I know they're paying for your rent, but there's no way you can afford all of this stuff unless you're rich. But it never comes up. They never tell us how she has any money. We know nothing about Emily. All we know is Emily had a boyfriend, she's in marketing, and she moved to Paris. That's literally all we ever learned about Emily. That's it. That's freaking it. Emily does not have any character development whatsoever. Somewhere in all this, she becomes an Instagrammer, a pretty successful one. She starts at 0. Next thing you know, she's at like 50,000 subscribers on her Instagram page. And we're like, how did this do this? Sorry, I was talking about her friend, her Chinese friend, whose name, again, do not remember. Her name's Mindy. I looked it up. Yeah, I don't like to just call people by like names. But yeah, Mindy is a nanny. She comes from a really super wealthy family in China who was like invented zippers, but she didn't want to do that. She wanted to be a singer. She's a really good singer. She got embarrassed on like the Chinese equivalent of American Idol. Then decided to get a business degree in France. Dropped out. Became a nanny. That's all, and that's Mindy. Mindy is just like the emotional support. And Mindy is the black side character, and if you've ever seen the Ganesha movie, you know what I'm talking about for Emily. Except like they're in Paris, like, oh, Emily can have a black friend, like that'd be crazy. So let's give her a Chinese friend. Sprinkle in that diversity. Mwah. And that's like pretty much all that happens at Emily in Paris. Like the first 9 or so episodes, Emily's doing well at her job. She meets this one guy who's actually a total D-bag. They break up. She's pining over Gabriel, the chef, the whole time. Her and her boss, whose name is Sylvie, they start bonding along better. There are also like some overtly like sexual unnecessary scenes in this movie. I think they're trying to be like raunchy or really appeal to like that demographic. This show really tries hard to appeal to the over 18, I guess below 35 audience. Very hardly. Like so much so that like I keep getting tons of TikTok ads for this, like tons. Like in those embedded ones too, like from like the actual TikTokers, like having Emily in Paris like skits, and it's crazy. It's so crazy. I've been trying to convince my friend to watch the show. She's like, I don't wanna. I'm like, it's okay. Like maybe you'll like it. They're in Paris. You like Paris, right? She's like, I don't wanna watch this. After that conversation, she started getting so many ads where she shared with me 2 different TikToks back to back promoting Emily in Paris. I will play them for you right now. Crazy, crazy, crazy. I got one too. And like, there's this one I got. She's like, Carolyn the Rich, and she's in Vegas. And she's like, oh, but have you ever seen Carolyn in Vegas? And it's just like it's a mock on Emily in Paris, but it's sponsored by Netflix. Netflix really, really went in. I have not seen Netflix promote something this hard that I actually ended up watching ever. Ever. But again, this was in Paris. It was set in Paris. This show took like some dollar bills, some chang. Can't be surprised. Cannot be surprised. Alright, that's all you need to know about Emily in Paris for the most part. And now let's get into the finale and talking about whether or not this will be a season 2 and where we are right now. So Emily, for Pierre Cardot, he's trying to rebrand his fashion line, and she's trying to like rebrand his image so she gets to still for him to be at to have a piece auction at the Americans for the Louvre to like kind of like rebrand, bring back mainstream. They do that, but then there's this other smaller business called Gray Space who buys the outfit and then sprays paints the dress for Pierre Cardot, and it's like a whole scandal. It's called Regard, which is just like cheap, tacky. And so Pierre Cardot is like kind of like minimized in the space of fashion, and like he's very, very depressed for this. But he does through this just the most baller move that I have seen and I wish I could do. He basically has someone making like 32 creme brulees, and it's just like they're lying in bed like cracking them. And Emily comes in, she's like, are you okay? He's like, do you want a creme brulee? She's like, no, I'm good. And she's like, no, you just crack him. Isn't it satisfying? It's just like cracks it. And I'm just like, oh. I love creme brulee, and like the most satisfying thing is just like cracking them. So that was a dream. Emily is able to kind of convince him to kind of rebrand, so he does get inspired by Emily and comes up with this collection that kind of embraces like being tacky, being cheap, but making it fashionable. And it's very different, but it's also like chic. It's a good turn of events, and I was like really surprised. I didn't realize he had like the depth to do something that different. And they also did a pop-up show at the Gray Space event who had took over Pierre Cardot's, and I was like it was kind of brilliant. Honestly, Emily is somehow a marketing genius. Very surprised about this. Maybe that's why she's so successful, even though she has no background in this and just a pharmaceutical marketer. Her and Matthew start seeing each other, and it's going fairly-ish well. I forgot to mention something. So. This is the crazy part of the series. There's like 2 really, really insane scenes in this series that I will mention. The first being Emily kind of has to babysit this American actress because Sylvia's supposed to be going to St. Bart's, but she doesn't. And she has this one scene where she's literally, the actress takes them into her room and they're talking, and she like literally strips off all of her clothes and lies on the couch, and we're like, what is she doing? And she like tells Emily, oh, we have to talk in like 15 minutes because like when I come back from the long flight I have to masturbate. Can we talk in 15? And like, what does this mean? Like, there's like such a mismatch of Emily in Paris trying to be like hip and with it and young, and like, yo, this is not televised cable, so we can like be raunchy, but also it's super weird sometimes. Other scene is that Emily goes with Camille and Gabrielle to where she's from, the vineyard she's from, because they have a chateau, and Emily's supposed to kind of like pitch her brand, pitch savoir to do marketing for the champagne company. Emily says that she has this older brother who's in business school. She wants to meet, kind of like inferring that, oh, I think you guys would be super, super cute together. Emily goes on this tour and meets this guy who she believes is Emily's brother. Hint, hint, I said believe. And they kind of like do some flirting, and Emily's out at this pool just chilling, and he comes out and they're like flirting. He brings some champagne and does this really weird thing where he reaches out, touches her boob, and I'm like, what the fuck? If someone touched your boob, would you just like let them? And then she proceeded to reach out, grab his hand, and put it on her other boob. And I was like literally scandalized. I was like, what is this scene? What is going on here? And then obviously they do like some bam chicka wow wow. And then next day, Emily goes to brunch. She has this little hickey on her neck. She tries to cover up with the honestly one of the most atrocious outfits that Emily wears. Emily has absurdly good taste this whole entire series. Like very, very good. Like here she is wearing a very expensive Chanel purse. Here she is wearing a very fancy Chanel jacket. Here she's wearing a very fancy Dior coat. And I'm like, how does Emily afford any of this? We not learn like any of Emily's like financial standing of her family and her background. How does this girl who is probably like low to middle management at a firm afford this type of stuff? There is no way she's getting paid enough for this. Like literally no freaking way. Her outfits are just insane. The same woman who did the wardrobe for costuming and wardrobe for Sex and the City does Emily in Paris. That just tells you how absurd these outfits are related to the actual story and plotline. Completely separate things. They're cute sometimes. Sometimes they're cute. At this brunch, Camilla introduces Emily to her brother, and she's like, "Wait, didn't I meet your brother yesterday?" And she's like, Camilla's like, "Timothy? Oh no, Timothy's 17." And Emily's like, Emily's literally aghast at this. She's like, "What? I thought he was your brother." And they're like, "Why?" And then they see her hickey, and she's like acting weird. And then Timothy, the 17-year-old, comes out, and he kisses her, and she's like, "I thought you said he was in college." She's like, "Yeah, college, like high school." And she's like, "What? I thought I was in college." That's confusing. And someone's like, "Université is university, so that's university." That was crazy. But the weirdest thing is when Camille's mother pulls her aside and we're like, oh, this woman's about to go in on Emily for accosting her son. I looked it up. The age of consent in Paris is 15, so it's all kosher. It's all good. But what Camille's mother really cares about is to make sure that her son is good in bed. It's like, what? Like that was her main concern, to make sure it was good in bed. And I was like, yeah, it was fine. And then it was like swerves into talking about business and managing the vineyard. And I'm like, okay, I guess, cool. Wow. That resolves itself because again, everything works out fine for Emily in the end. Emily, we go back, and that kind of all brings us to our final episode of the series. So Mindy has moved in with Emily because she quit, because she got fired. Antoine's wife Sylvie is aware that Antoine and Sylvie are like on the fritz. The main tea though here is that Gabriel, the hot attractive neighbor guy, wanted to buy the restaurant that he was chef at, but like Camille's gonna give him money for it, but he wasn't up for that because like he didn't want that responsibility with his girlfriend, which I completely understand. So he was gonna buy a place in Normandy where he is from, so Camille and him broke up. Emily found this out, so like her and Gabriel like and Emily says the best thing she's ever heard this whole series, and was like, hey, I do like you, but this isn't gonna work out because we both have two people in our lives that we're interested in. Wild. Emily's the best thing she has said this whole entire series, and she says, hey, I do like you, this was fun, but this isn't gonna work realistically because there are two people in my lives that I care a lot about who would be severely affected about that. One being Mathieu, Pierre Godot's nephew, who she's like interested in like seeing. They even said that they'd be going to Saint-Tropez the weekend, as well as Camilla. Camilla and Emily are still friends. This would greatly hurt her if they were to pursue a long distance thing. Long distance quotation marks. I did look it up. Normandy to Paris is about 2.5 hours. I live in Houston, but I work in Dallas. It's a 4-hour commute. I'm able to come back for my family fairly often. It's not super, super insane. So I'm like, okay, cool. That ends that. Emily's gonna have a lovely relationship with Matthew. Peaceful. Goodbye. Alas, didn't happen. Emily decides to run out and see if not Antoine, she just decides to run out, just walking around the neighborhood. She sees Antoine sitting outside. She's like, oh, hey, what are you doing here? He's like, oh, I'm just like doing some paperwork. She's like, that's kind of weird. Why are you at this restaurant? Gabriel used to work out. Out walks Gabriel with a bottle of champagne. He's like, oh, hey, Emily. She's like, I thought you were leaving. He's like, oh, I thought so too, but Antoine came by and said he'd be an investor in this restaurant with me. Crazy. Wonderful, right? And I'm like, and it was like, and then Gabriel kisses her on the cheek, and we're all like, what does that mean? He's like, I'm here to stay. And I'm like, isn't Emily still going to St. Tropez tomorrow? Like, are you still with Camille? What about Antoine? Seems very, very messy. I literally can't believe Emily, literally there's no male in this whole entire show that's not attracted to Emily aside from her 2 coworkers. Freaking insane. So insane. I can't get over it. Can't get over it now. Anyway, series ends with a text from Camille saying, hey, Gabriel just told me that he's actually staying in Paris after all, not going to Normandy. Let's talk. Fade to black. And that's where we end for the series. Would I watch a second season of Emily in Paris? Sure. What else am I doing with my life? Do I want to? No. Do I care about anyone's storyline? No. I'm sorry, I just can't get myself to care about attractive white people problems. I know that they're French, but they're still white. And that's my view. Alright, that's all I got for this one, guys. Please like and subscribe and drop down your comments below. Did you watch Emily in Paris? Do you like Emily in Paris? Was this absurd to you? Were you convinced by a whole bunch of TikToks to watch this series even though you had no desire to? And you know, there were other things to do with life and you're kind of like forced into it? Probably. Let me down below and follow me on my socials, and I'll see you guys next time.